Just a reminder that any thoughts, opinions, and points of views expressed during this podcast are those of the individual and not of the Grand Lodge, appendant body, or concordant body that individual may belong. Welcome to the third episode of Pen and Compass. I am your host this episode, Rodney McGilvery. Joining me is the creator of Pen and Compass, Jeff Bennett. How's it going, bud?
Here, Secretary, sir.
For the most part, I'm usually behind the camera, so to speak, and tables have turned.
Yeah, this is a little bit different.
Yeah. So I say let's go
I'm,
back.
I'm usually not nervous because I'm the host and
Right.
whatever happens, happens, but I'm the one getting questioned tonight. So it's a little bit different for me.
I say let's go back to basics. Starting out, let's get the origin story of Jeff Bennett. How'd you first come to learn about the fraternity?
Pretty easy. My papaw is the way we say it down south. My grandfather, he was made a master mason in rural East Texas in kind of the Palestine, Corsicana area, Cayuga. It's probably the nearest town. Tennessee Colony is actually, and in the 1950s, in the proto like the actually they built it not too much before he joined, and he had been in World War II. He'd been in the Civilian Conservation Corps. Before that, grew up in Oklahoma, and his brother-in-law, my uncle Elmer, was a master mason in Oklahoma. And so I think that inspired him to become a master mason in Texas, where he lived. He worked in the oil field and fell in love with the fraternity. And by 1955, he was a worshipful master of Tire Lodge number 198 there in Tennessee Colony. The building still stands there today. It's almost like Graceland. It's like still in that kind of original format. And I've actually gotten to attend a meeting there, and it was a very humbling and nostalgic moment for me and for my family. And had a Facebook post about that. Then, just actually about a week ago, my uncle, who is the son of my papaw, my uncle Barry, he he became a master mason, worshipful master, great ritualist, and so through the two of them, knew about the fraternity early on. I always joke and say I know what fraternity Santa Claus is a member of because I always saw Santa Claus show up at my grandparents' house, my papa and Dee Dee's house, with Scottish Rite double eagle ring on. It was one of my papa's Shriner buddies that he had asked to come deliver in costume, full costume for the grandkids on Christmas Eve, some of the presents that we were going to get that evening, and so it's always been a part of my life as far back as I can remember, going to shrine circuses, going to watch my papaw be in the mini patrol in parades in and around East Texas, and then my uncle having the emblems after my papaw passed away on his suburban or his pickup truck or whatever. Have other in southern Oklahoma and in the Tulsa area, a heritage of Freemasonry there. So I'm very connected to Oklahoma as well as Texas. And from there, about 25 years ago, after I had been in my college fraternity, which is Kappa Alpha Order, Delta Kappa chapter of Stephen F. Austin State University, was number 3, which is one of the secretaries in that, and got very involved with the ritual and fell in love with it. I actually remember the date of my initiation into kind of fraternal organizations, August the 28th, 1992, and I've never looked back. And so I kind of jokingly say here 25, 30 something years later that, hi, I'm Jeff. I'm a I'm a initiation ritual addict. Kind of like at support, some kind of support meeting or something. Totally obsessed with it and have loved it ever since then. And Freemasonry is the practical way that I can do this on a daily, hourly, weekly, monthly basis. So that's kind of the background there.
Excellent. Did you have any experience like in your college days that was similar to like how you are a supposed ritual addict? Um, did you have anything in like during your college days that was similar to that at all?
No, no, so in August 28th, 1992, I
Mm,
was I'd pledged in the spring, and we were invited to come back for initiation. In those days, you had to wait a whole semester, get your grades, and then come back. And we were neophytes. We went from being pledges to neophytes, and then we became full members that night. And there's two different grades or degrees in that. It's based on Knights Templarism.
mhm.
Um, it's a national fraternity. A lot of Ks are actually our executive director, Larry Weiss, is a Texas Mason, and a lot of K Masons that I know and value those friendships um, in a different way than just your average Masonic companionship because I can discuss all the ritual that I know, especially if they're in the York Rite and the Scottish Rite and invitational bodies and it's really great because you don't have to kind of pedal back. And so, yeah, I was in the cast from the very beginning. Usually, kind of like you work up in a Masonic lodge, you're a guide, you're helping the candidates kind of move around in the ceremony. And then I was, when I was elected to my office in the chapter, I eventually was given a part. It's a very beautiful, poetic, philosophical part. And that really captured my love of just passion, just fervor. I mean, it just took me over the top. And I still get to periodically, either with my chapter or other chapters in the state of Texas, get to attend those conferrals, initiation ceremonies, and they're very special. So the ritual was written by a small handful of over time back in the 1800s, 1865 to about early 1900s, and they were Freemasons. And I can tell you from some of the things that they borrowed, they didn't just kind of regurgitate the degrees, but they borrowed things. And so there's the structure and the framework of the Blue Lodge and kind of initiation as we would see it pretty much in craft masonry for sure. And then there's this kind of sprinkling of the roll arch, and then the symbolism and the background story and everything that we use is based on Knights Templar.
Yep.
So those three bodies, which were very prevalent after the Civil War, the Scottish Rite had not really taken hold, especially in the South, and so it makes a lot of sense because it was founded in Lexington, Virginia, back in 18. Actually, it's December the 21st, 1865. So. Yeah, obviously, I love my college fraternity just as much as I love the Freemasonry
Right.
fraternity.
Makes sense. Did you deal with any hazing like during your college?
So I would say it was character testing.
Okay.
We never, I mean, we never really. By that time, in in the early 90s, um, things were kind of within due bounds, is the way I'll say it.
Mhm.
And we were tested, we were challenged, but most of it was lighthearted. It was fun, and I think for anything, it prepared me along with Texas high school football and athletics in high school in Texas are pretty brutal themselves. So it wasn't that much different than what I'd already kind of experienced from coaches or teammates or whatever in high school. And so I, that's outside of the formal ritual. That would be just kind of during pledgeship, but I think there's a great lesson of once you had gone through all that, you know, it was just more of a process and that you were initiated, you're a full member, and that was all in the past. And that was just a part of the, the process, I guess I would say.
Right. And probably the whole point of that is to bring you guys closer together. Um,
Oh, I love my pledge brothers, right? I mean, I like everybody in my fraternity, but my pledge brothers mean like the world to me.
Very true. With that in mind, did you have any like preconceived notions that Freemasonry prior to getting your EA degree might
Yeah.
might have some hazing involved with that before you joined?
Um, so kind of the opposite. I was like, well, college kids are going to do that, and so by the time, so 92, I turned in my petition for the mysteries of Freemasonry in the spring of 1999.
Okay.
In 1998, I had gone to a KA initiation and um, had come across some KA Masons, and they encouraged me and they kind of gave me the blueprint going back to my origin story. Um, and they encouraged me to call my uncle, get his blessing to be a reference on my petition, and then there were two of them. So in Texas, you didn't have three references, and then you need to have two members of the lodge you want to join. And I was living in Arlington, Texas, 2.5, 3 hours away drive from where I grew up, and the lodge my papa had been a member of, and had to kind of start from ground level. Walked into the lodge that I am a 25-year member of now, Arlington number 438 in beautiful downtown Arlington, Texas, and met my future Masonic mentor. I call him my Masonic father, um, Bob Collier, and he just took me under his wing for about the next 20 years. And
Are you still connected with Bob right now?
he's in his 90s and has moved out of town. I knew that he was kind of starting to shut things down, and he was the secretary of my lodge. He was secretary and recorder of all three Yorkite bodies, which are all in the same building, feet away from each other, yards away from each other. And so Bob and I used to travel to Grand Commandery, Grand Chapter Grand Council. He was getting, even at that point in time, 25 years ago, he's in his 90s now, and he needs somebody to drive 4 hours away to a grand session, and so we really spent a lot of time together, and he means the world to me, and just really helped shape me not only into the Freemason that I've been allowed to become, but the I think the man that I am today.
Very nice. Yeah, I think having a mentor is extremely important.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like that down in Texas, but Indiana has like a mentorship program now.
Yeah, we have those formal ones, but I think the best ones, and I think you've heard me talk on some of the other episodes that we've already recorded, that, I take it myself to find that candidate and that new person. And as we're kind of finishing up a degree or whatever, I'm like, hey, you just experienced this, congratulations. But what do you want to understand? What do you have questions about? And if you can't really come to them right now, because everybody processes things in different ways. I'm
Right.
like, man, here's my cell phone number. I would love to connect with you on Facebook. I'm always just a Facebook message away, and that's what I thrive off of, and that's where, um, yeah, we'll talk about. I'm sure you have. I don't want to run. I'm sure there's other questions you'll have. They'll bring out other things that I can.
Right, definitely. Now, I know right now, or at least since I met you, you are interested in the esoteric side of things, which seems to be gaining some traction, I think, around the nation. Um, did you have any sort of interest in that when you joined Freemasonry, or even prior to being part of this fraternity?
So a part of Cap Alpha Order, we have kind of training as we're pledges. And then once you're initiated, we have a council of honor.
Okay.
And a portion of that teaches you about the symbolism and kind of has a study guide effect or a study group effect at the local chapter level. And I love that. We actually even made up shirts, and I still have my shirts, even though they're like 4 sizes too small for me, t-shirts for me. I'll post a picture sometime and send them to you. It's this beautiful old original lithograph from like the late 1800s, early 1900s of this young knight in the Middle East, Jerusalem, in the time of the Crusades, and they are setting up camp after they have vanquished the Saracens.
Okay.
And they're putting up the banner with the cross of Jesus on it and our insignias. And I just remember being just, wow, that is so cool. And that I'm a member of something that dates back over 100 years. And just kind of that whole, in itself, kind of in our modern age, that gives you kind of a mystery without even studying anything. You're just kind of, I mean, Freemasonry and college fraternities and all these esoteric schools and mystery schools and things, these things are around, they've been around centuries. Not the latest ad campaign for whatever brand of products or services that is on TikTok or YouTube or Facebook or
Right.
streaming or
Yeah.
whatever.
That brings up a
Yeah,
good question, though. Do you consider Freemasonry like an esoteric or a mystery school itself?
I definitely know it can be. Um, I think it is a meeting place for people that want to search deep, deeply into symbolism. And I mean, this is kind of unpacking it for in public, but I don't think we do a good enough job of just talking about symbols and symbolism and kind of there's that surface level that's maybe in the ritual. There's to me there's an ascent above, there's a descent of below. There's so many different kind of myriads of levels um,
Right.
that symbolism turns into esotericism, turns into interpretation, turns into methodology, and just like a lot of the other things that you can study, they all start kind of coming back together and kind of almost like bumper cars at the amusement park, kind of bumping into each other, molecules within an atom or something. They're just kind of colliding at some,
Yeah,
and
that's a
those
great.
things are kind of sparks, and there's vibrations, and there's different things kind of coming out and manifesting.
Right. Yeah, it's like you have these other pieces of thought from other, I would say maybe other schools of thought that surround Freemasonry, and you do start bumping into those. And I like how you put it, it leads to a spark because it might spark some deeper meaning behind the
When two
ritual.
things rub together, you get friction. There's energy there, and that's like the basis of the physical world. And as much as we want to maybe be celestial, spiritual, ethereal, we're still physical beings as long as we're here.
Right. Now, speaking of friction, the thought of esoteric or the esoteric Freemason is causing some friction amongst Masonry, like within the order itself, and even like within some of the Grand Lodges. Do you think it's always been like that with American Freemasonry, or do you think when American Freemasonry started, it had maybe like a more esoteric feeling? I'm talking specifically in America.
Yeah, and I think, you and I have spent so much time together since June 8th, 2024, that I understand your I think everything is I've studied communication and the encoding and decoding of a term, just one word,
Right.
esoteric, different, what esoteric or symbolism. Esoteric's kind of a really unique one. And a lot of times, whenever people say, "Well, yeah, I'd love for you to teach us the esoterics," and I go, "So, what do you mean by that?" And they're like, "Oh, just tell us the passwords and how to do the right grip and where to stand and all the modes." To me, I call those modes of recognition. The esoterics are what is implicitly implied in that body of work. And with that is every time you try to interpret something as an individual,
Mhm.
and even what you hear in a ritual that's described to you, you're still something's happening is happening different between my two ears as Rodney's two ears, or TJ's two ears, or Patrick's two ears, or Mike Doxey's two, whoever, right? And that's where we don't do a good enough job of exploring and discovering in a wide range outside of a small percentage of us. I'm not saying they're doing it wrong. I'm just saying you asked me the question, so I'm trying to frame it to an answer. And we're not trying to purely go after the subject matter that we are supposed to be studying in our ritual through esoterics, through interpreting symbolism, and just plain old discussion, and there's a certain brotherly love in that, and there should be a tolerance that goes with it. That my interpretation is my interpretation. It's not right or it's not wrong. I don't. Sometimes it's just it can be. Sometimes it can be logical. Sometimes it can be based on I see this happening in the ritual. I know this from my Bible study. I know this from my study of science or music or one of the seven liberal arts, or my senses tell me this. Sometimes it's just like purely this is the way I feel, and this is what it is to me. This is what it is to me. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's almost like there's an area of esotericism that involves just your own personal consciousness, which has to do with your own personal experience. So you're seeing the symbols through your lens of your experience.
Yeah. I
That-
mean, did everybody standing in the same field, parking lot, or whatever during the solar eclipse that happened, did they see the same thing?
Depends on what angle they're seeing it from.
Exactly. And so a long time ago, about 25 years ago, I was blessed in my EA Fellowcraft Master Mason, kind of going back to my origin story again. I was blessed to go into a suburban lodge in a town of 350,000 people that had at that time close to 1,000 members on the rolls, and about throughout the year we'd have like 90 at a stated meeting. And I was blessed because we were a big active lodge with a lot of younger guys back then, 25 years ago, that there was this guy named David Freed. And he's a third generation Russian Jewish guy that grew up in Chicago. About as opposite as Jeff Bennett from Henderson, Texas, East Texas, the redneck that I am. And David is this guy. He's a Reformed Jewish guy, and we just really enjoyed each other's company. And so I was so kind of isolated and had never been had the opportunity to spend this much time with someone of the Jewish faith, and was very curious. And we would start discussing things, and we would go through the first 3 degrees, and there's some themes in there that I intrinsically, inherently, hereditary, like from my point of view, from everything that I've been taught from growing up in the Southern Baptist tradition, I was like, I know that this symbol means this. And he would look at me and he'd go, nope, don't even see that.
Hmm.
I was like, what do you mean? Like, he's like, that's not my belief system. I'm Jewish. I'm not a Christian. I don't see Jesus and the Messiah in the same way that you do. Oh, tell me more. And this might sound a little out there, but there was one day or one night in a dream or something, or kind of just kind of it came to me. And I saw the two of us in the East Lodge room. We have 2 lodge rooms in Arlington in our building. In the East Lodge room, and I saw all the lights off, and I saw the open Bible sitting on the altar, and nothing but the altar light coming down. Darkness in the wings all around the building, all around that room. And in a Masonic lodge, whenever you turn out the lights and you just put on the altar light, it's dark.
Yeah,
When you have all the fluorescent, you have like 82 fluorescent tubes. It's dark. No windows. No, and
like
so
you got the
huh?
blindfold.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like pitch. It's like a cave. And so I just remember from him being from Chicago and me being from East Texas. I just remember kind of in my mind's eye, I saw him approaching from the north to the altar and me approaching from the south and looking down at the Bible. And there was something inside of me that said, he's seen it from a different angle and it's okay. And it was such a huge lesson in kind of this interpretive Freemasonry. That's where it began for me, I think, is really seeing and having this close association, which is what I love about Freemasonry,
Right.
is that, you know, kind of in the college fraternity system, you're going to pick those that are a lot like you for good reasons, because you're kind of in this hostile environment. You want that Cheers back in the 80s sitcom, that place where everybody knows your name and you're accepted.
Hmm.
You want that, to get invited to your college fraternity. Freemasonry's the polar opposite. You need to seek out membership. You need to show your worth, not be pre kind of selected and judged. And so with that, and then the universality, the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, and all these concepts of tolerance that we have, it's made me a better person. It's made me a better citizen of the world. It's made me a more loving Christian man on every level. And so,
I'm glad you're saying that because that's actually you're answering one of my next questions for you. I was going to ask you if uh, if Freemasonry was a transformative experience for you, because that's the definition of the initiatory or the idea of initiation is to be from take one state and transform it into another, pretty much.
yeah, I mean, I'm a type A personality guy. Um, I mean, I was pretty sure I'm in my 50s now, and let's just say that in my inner self, in my inner, and I let my ego run wild. Pretty sure that I was the smartest person in the room. Um, Not pretty sure. Most time, extremely sure. And even though my wife of now 30 years, in year 10 and year 20 and so on and so forth, whenever I let the guard down and I would tell her what was really being thought inside of me and my true feelings and everything, she would advise me like, that's not healthy. It's not healthy for you. That's not good for you in the world. And you need to reconsider that. And let's just put it this way. Freemasonry was the thing, especially interpreting symbolism, was the thing that whenever I changed my attitude and approach, it really became more fulfilling to me and more rewarding than that other self. And one of the things that I'll tell you, and hopefully we'll get one of all the different podcast concepts that we have and the different labels and stuff. One of them is as we three. And I hope that we get this up and going. But the concept is myself and two other Royal Arch and Royal and Select Master companions have a short podcast where we interpret and talk about a specific symbol per episode. Short, 20 to 30 minutes is hopefully the concept. And I did this before we started kind of this generation of production. And I did this a few years ago, and I remember that the two guys that I was recording this with, we were talking about a certain symbol in the Mark Master's degree. And I went first, said all these wonderful things that I thought were brilliant, and pretty much I'm like, kind of in a egotistical, arrogant way. It's like, boy, that was good, like thinking to myself, like, all right, tag, you're it, your turn. All of a sudden, Anthony Cabello starts talking about the working tools of a master mason that are given to us, the compasses and how they're used on this particular symbol in the Mark Master. And I was just like, I think the British term would be I was gobsmacked.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I think the American term was I was kind of stopped in my tracks.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know as much as I think I know. I have a blind spot. I can't know everything. I'm a finite being. How stupid was I? How arrogant was I?
Right. You received more light at that point.
Because I shut up long enough to listen and truly engage with someone else. Silence is a virtue sometimes. And I never, and I would maybe say that in a lecture, or we say that in an opening or closing or something in different degree work, and I've been doing that for 20 years. But not until we kind of everything got stripped away. And COVID and the lockdowns and that time in our history is really a pitiful time. And it's sad, and there's lots of tragedy to it. But out of that, good will always come out of evil. And for me personally, and I'm not saying in any sense that the world was shut down so I could improve myself, but it happened. And that was a part of it because we were recording that, and I heard that, and it was like, you know what? I need to get into these kind of discussions and these deep level things, kind of almost like in a functional, kind of purposeful way, and almost like forcefully create these situations And if I do it for my, and I've seen it happen for myself, and I've seen it happen for the other people involved in it.
All right. So your experience has been extremely transformative. Would you say it is, well, I think you alluded to your personal life as well, has been transformative due to the initiation process.
Yeah, I love my church. I grew up in a really wonderful Southern Baptist setting, extremely Bible based, Bible study. The Word of God is a literal gift to us as human beings. There's nothing wrong with that. And so that gives you a belief system. And so I carried that forward, came into my college fraternity, saw reinforcements of that, but saw this like whole world that opened up to me.
Mm.
Went into my apprentice degree, enjoyed that. Fell a craft. I think it was I was so caught up in Texas. We do mouth to ear, totally verbal
Okay.
um, proficiencies. So I was like really focused on just trying to memorize all the right words. But I learned a lot in that too, right? And that still is with me today, 25 years later. Then the Master Mason's degree, I won't go into a lot of detail there, the way it's conferred in Texas. But let's just say to to steal something from a part of ancient craft masonry that exists, I'll just say in the Yorkite system. There's something that we say, you look down and you say something's wanting. And when I got to the end of that process and I had been told that this is the highest form of Freemasonry that exists, this is the greatest thing, I was like, I don't think so. I think right down the hall in the West Lodge room, in my lodge, that's what I've been looking for all my, to get here. And so for me, I mean, I appreciate the Blue Lodge a lot more as I've been a member for years. But in the short go, in the short term, it was very much this doesn't measure up to what I experienced in college and what I used to be on the degree team in college. And with some of those things, but I appreciate it a lot more now. Let's just put it that way. And so I remember walking into a festival in February of 2000 and seeing the Mark Master degree. I was actually there was about a class of 25 of us in a festival in downtown Fort Worth in our beautiful historic 1930s built Masonic temple. It's gorgeous. And they have a red room. It's one of the most unique rooms because it's just for the chapter, Royal Arch chapter. And it's set up in red and gold, and the mural of the ruins of King Solomon's temple are behind the east. And it's just, for me, it's one of my happiest places on earth. And I went in, and even though I joined in Arlington in a different building, more modern 1963 built building, this building, I was like, oh, wow, this is what I've been looking for, this grandeur and this everything. And so very great Tarrant County, Texas, which is Fort Worth, Arlington, and everything west of Dallas is one of the greatest Masonic experiences you can have. The best ritualist, no things to the T. The degree work there is immaculate, still today, even 25 years later,
Right.
and very moving always. Lots of without being cheesy, just great performances. And so walk into that, see all these props, see some some drama to it, and looks a little bit more like my college fraternity initiatic experience. And I'm like, I remember the Mark Master degree being conferred the Friday night, and then Saturday we came back, did the Royal Arch through Order of the Temple, and I just remember, and I got to be the part of the portion of the exemplar candidate for the Order of the Temple. And going back to I know that my mentor, looking back, Bob Collier, was instrumental in that. And just remember, and so that's the fourth floor, Commandery Asylum. It looks like a Gothic church from the 15, 16, 1700s. Amazing, beautiful room. And I just remember being like, wow, this just blew me away. Just everything in the Royal Arch, and like, wow, this is, I think I found a home. And so I was offered and encouraged to be an officer in the York Rite. My Blue Lodge at the time was very well endowed or staffed or blessed with a lot of great leaders that were going to be going through the line in the chairs. And they really didn't need me. And what they offered me was to be one of the stewards. And I had a job where I worked at Texas Motor Speedway. I lived in Arlington, which is about 33 miles one way. So I was driving out almost an hour, sometimes, especially maybe even more than that when it rained, to commute back and forth. And there's no way I could be available to serve dinner at 6 o'clock on the second Tuesday of every month. And so I declined that appointment, and I went into the York Rite, which aligned more with my professional and personal life. And then we had degree work on Saturdays, and we had festivals, and it was just a lot more scalable to my life. And so I got to have that same fulfillment through fraternity ritual that I'd found in college.
Okay.
And then the Knights Templar carry over into the Order of the Temple with Kappa Alpha Order. There's elements of the Royal Arch, like I talked about earlier, in Kappa Alpha Order's ritual. And so that's where I've enjoyed most of my. In February, I'll be a 25-year York Rite Mason, and very proud York Rite Mason. Obviously, you've known me long enough to know that there's no doubt in that, and people think of me as a York Rite Mason above anything else.
I think the first title you told me to give you was companion overall.
I love being called companion. If you are my companion in the Royal Arch or the Royal and Select Masters Cryptic Council, it's just brother is a great thing, but from the pretty much the second or third story you want to look at, if you look at creation, the Garden of Eden, the fall of man, the kicking out of the Garden of Eden of man, and then the procreation of Cain and Abel. About the fourth or fifth story in the whole Bible is about one brother killing another. So we haven't been nice to each other from the beginning. Whenever we've been on the same level, and people are kind of fighting for their space and their power. But companionship is different. Companionship is you and I are. There's an old kind of gospel spiritual song that says we're in the same boat, and it actually says brother. But because the meter probably and the rhyme probably works better. But companionship means a lot to me, and those people that I know are my true companions in life, whether they're inside Freemasonry or outside Freemasonry, they've stood the test of time, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. Um, Also, you kind of have a scholarly side of yourself or an academic side. We've discussed some of your various projects on the side. Um, how do you go about engaging or approaching the study of Masonic education material to start your own creative processes?
So I think that for me, the 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 blessing of being in the environment that I came up Masonically, people knowing the ritual, knowing how to execute it and perform it, but being a little bit maybe lacking, and there being a void there in the interpretation of what they have memorized or what they are acting out and what they're just playing off the script.
Right.
Similar to someone being a newscaster, reading the teleprompter, someone being an actor and just performing the lines that have been written for them. I have the curiosity, and I think it's an artistic curiosity, is a term I've come up with recently, that I ask, well, why are those passwords there and what do they mean? Especially when I got to the Royal Arch and the opening ceremony in Texas, the way we perform it full form. It's beautiful. It's the most, hands down, there's nothing more beautiful than the opening full form to me in Freemasonry, anywhere, of any degree work, than the opening ceremony of a Royal Arch chapter. So symbolic, so esoteric, so just loaded with just this richness and treasures. And the, hey, what's this guy's name again? That there's just a letter and a little line out beside his name, and I'm supposed to know this password in the future if I'm playing that part. Yeah, that's this and this and this. Well, what does that mean? Blank stare, a little bit of quiet. Well, I'm not sure, and it's not anywhere in the ritual. It's not in like a closing lecture or anything like that. Cool.
Yeah.
And so that's where that void happens. And for me, I guess my personality is I like to, there's a concept of the path of least resistance.
Right.
And so whenever I see those opportunities to, it kind of fuels my excitement to study that more. And I think that's where, and I laugh when you're talking about scholarly or academic. I just get
Yeah.
excited.
Probably. Do you even consider yourself a scholar or an academic?
I I I uh, I don't think. Wow, I'm not a big reader. I'm not good at reading. I like to think and contemplate. I mean, what I do like to read is, I mean, I've read through the Bible, the full Bible, kind of, I think it was an NIV probably version once. Just read it like a book, just knocked through it. It takes me a long time to read a book. I'm not just like sit down and every night and I've got it done in record time. Uh, for me, I really like interacting with people. It's my personality. I think there's probably some things that I've never been tested for, and I'm a really experience. Let me just put it this way: of the three ways that you can learn, experiential, visual, and audio. Whenever I'm in an experiential situation, I'm going to retain a lot more of that
Right.
than I am. And then if you want me to really remain and own something a little bit further, please send it to me so I can visually go back over it. Because if I hear it, it's just like, wait a minute, what happened? Well, like, was there something? What was that sound? And so, for me, being an academic or a scholar, I just don't have that rigidity. And maybe I did when I was a little bit younger. And as I get, and that once I was young, but now I'm old, to kind of quote some scripture, some scripture and ritual. And I just really, really enjoy engaging with people, I think. And so in the last several years, especially as like things have kind of turned in our world, YouTube has become a great resource for me.
Oh, it is. I mean, you can almost look up anything you could possibly think of right now on YouTube.
And and it kind of started out with more podcast, and then YouTube, and with a lot of the ways that we have technology and it can be delivered to you personally through your smartphone. So as far as following those rules of citing sources and things like that, I try to be, in a legalistic sense, adhere to that as much as possible. I don't want to infringe on anybody's copyright. I don't want to basically plagiarize or steal from anybody. But as far as being academic and scholarly, I'm more about the vibe, the process, you know, um, the experience,
Right.
the jam, than kind of what notes did you play and can you write them back down?
Well, the jam is a very important part of the process. I mean, at least for me, I don't know if it's like that with you, but I come out of these jam sessions feeling like something inside me has changed, like I'm a different person, in some sort of way. And
So I think for me, you know, if I get to either online or three dimensional in person, and I get to experience something with somebody, for me, it's really crazy. I really want to. For me, a really healthy, fulfilling Masonic experience is like I'm a little bit worn out, but I can't stop wanting more. Like there's that kind of healthy, kind of joyful, happy imbalance of wow, I wish physically and human wise and the resources of time and we didn't have to go to work tomorrow or, you know, whatever, just kind of all that just kind of you just disappear. And we just come on this like really eternal ethereal plane and we can just like, I don't know, explore God's love or um, think about the cosmic framework of the universe or all these like big philosophical kind of scientific and natural law and all these ideas
maybe
that
that's what retirement feels like.
well I mean yeah I mean I would love to win the lottery or all these other things that could happen to me and just figure out what am I going to think about today and not kind of have to go what do I need to think about today. So, but that's probably why I haven't completed some of the literary works that I have out there. So, I would say more versus scholar or academic. I would say more artist,
Okay,
author. Um,
I like that. Well, with that in mind, you said you haven't really completed some of these literary works that you're in the process.
well, I have a lot of literary works that I've done. I'm a contributing author to the Knights Templar magazine. I wrote a very esoteric, very symbolic essay, which kind of started all of this back about 20 years ago in 2004, 2005. It was published. And from that, in the Grand Royal Arch chapter of Texas, a guy who had been elected and he was going to be grand high priest in a couple of years sought me out and said, hey, I saw your article. I liked it. Um, could you develop for the Royal Arch symbolism in our ritual the same kind of short talks that the Masonic Service Association has been doing since 1920? So he said, this is kind of your format and your framework, but you can write kind of whatever you want to. And so I have, let's say, I think I did about 7 or 8, 9 of those, maybe close to 10. And I still teach upon those same subject matters. Passwords of the Veils, where the topics or the titles, Roll Arch Banners, um, Triangles and Towels. Uh, what's another one? Like royal, like, was it, why do we say it's a royal arch, like arch? And so a lot of what I do and study is unpacking this whole system down into these small basic kind of elements. I think you might, from your alchemical background, call it the prima materia, and kind of these, and really just go, what are we really studying almost on the molecular, atomic, cellular kind of level. And
Right.
whenever you understand that, then you can kind of start. And then I was told that what I do from there is kind of build it back up. And that's the methodology, right?
Well, that's an alchemical formula right there. The ancients called it solve et coagula, to separate and then recombine.
Yeah.
But I remember, or we were speaking at the beginning of this year, I think, about you maybe speaking at various York Rite events, even maybe locally in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Yeah, about
So yeah, I've been very blessed since March 2023. Uh, I've had the opportunity to actually present either online, in person, or online my book concept, which is an interpretive methodology for symbolism and its practice. I'm still kind of working that out. It's probably going to, the concept kind of just keeps growing, and it's going to be multiple volumes. Uh, I also do a lot of chapter and council, rule arch chapter, rule and select master, cryptic council kind of teachings and classes for, or seminars, or facilitate discussions, and do a lot of those in Texas. Got the opportunity recently to speak in Kansas at a Knight Masons Allied Masonic degree in gathering for the state, and I taught upon our biblical and Masonic character of Zerubbabel, and kind of taught on that. I've also done that presentation in Houston a couple of years ago. Um, what else have I spoken? Oh, I actually, uh, with the online, I got to speak about the 13th degree, which is the Royal Arch of Solomon, for the Southern jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite, and taught that to a group of Masons, the Scottish Rite Masons out of Nebraska. And so I'm just really enjoying it. I was privileged to go up, and even though it's kind of a Blue Lodge event, they wanted me to speak on the chapter and the council in Michigan, and got a chance to be to travel up there, be a part of an educational symposium for that, and some of the things that you and I are working on, as well as several others, are the San Antonio Esoteric Summit, which is scheduled for June 2025, and it's definitely an esoteric summit. Been privileged to just kind of been given the keys to the kingdom and do what you want to, Jeff, and developed a curriculum to where we start out. I'll talk about symbolism, interpreting it. RJ Johnson of Whence Came You podcast fame will be kind of just giving people a general sense of what esoterics are all about, and 101, and some of the different schools of thought and philosophies there. Then I'm so excited that you and I've crossed paths. Or I think that was a part of the in organizing all this. I knew that I had one of the best Masonic, chemical, practical, real life alchemy experts that we could bring down to this, from Indiana to San Antonio. Speaking of Nebraska, that would be we're bringing in TJ Brumfeld from Nebraska to speak and give his interpretations of Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. And then a real life beekeeper who happens also to maybe be the grand historian of the Grand Lodge of Michigan, and in charge of their museum and their archives. Dirk Hughes is going to be speaking on the beehive. and then make sure I don't forget somebody, Rodney. And then we're going to have Frank Zepp helping us throughout the day. He's a Texas Mason, and he'll be overseeing, kind of directing and adding to the discussion, emceeing the event. And then we have our keynote speaker that's right now is Ben Williams, which is the editor in chief for the Knights Templar magazine, as well as he's the founder of Rocky Mountain Mason magazine and Esoteric Mason magazine. And his subject that we've decided on is going to be like, he's going to be kind of unpacking, just like everybody else during the day, is kind of talking about a specific thing. And he's going to be talking about Martinism. And then there's times where we're going to be kind of doing some jam sessions, is what I'm calling it, where you, Ben, Dirk, RJ, TJ, and are going to just be talking about different things that you heard during the day and kind of doing a summary. And then there's going to be a speakers panel where each speaker will be talking about their process, kind of from an artistic or scholarly or academic level, because we all kind of come from a different angle, right? That we've already talked about.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think it's going to be a very well-rounded. I think I just hope that people walk out of there and they're like, I didn't understand some of these subjects. I got challenged in places. I knew some things. I learned a lot. But now I feel like with hearing Rodney tell me how he got into being excited and really engrossed in alchemy, he gave me a path to do that, or something practical that I could start my own kind of expertise.
Right.
I hope we have kind of almost like graduates from this that come back, and we have them as speakers in the future because they have grown so much in several years.
That's a great idea. I love that. This like events like that, I think, are further proof that Freemasonry is, at least from my perspective, a Western mystery school. I mean, we're given the tools and the curriculum for teaching and gaining more light, exactly pretty much the same way the old traditional mystery schools were like.
Yeah, and I don't have a lot of the history or the study of those, um, but I just feel like there's a, and you've heard me use this term before. There's a tribe of us out there. I don't even know if we're a nation. I think we're more of a tribe. We're maybe small in number, but once you kind of find the camp, once you kind of roll into one of the wigwams or the teepees or kind of roll into the tabernacle or the tents or whatever kind of temporary structures are out there, I think that on your kind of your sojourn, um, I think we kind of sit around and everybody kind of greets each other, and so who are you and what are you interested in, and as you unpack that in that experiential experience, you go, wow, this person thinks a lot like me. Now they differ on me maybe in this opinion or the way that they kind of feel about this thing, but I love all this 98% of everything else. This corpus, this kind of body of everything else. And you and I don't agree on everything. And it's a beautiful thing that we don't agree on everything. And I have no energy or desire to sit there and try to change your mind or argue with you. I just let you say it and like, hey, that's wonderful. Maybe I need to think about that a little bit more before I even answer that.
Well,
And
life.
I think we had a little bit more of that in our interactive Freemasonry. I think everybody would be healthier.
Hmm.
Just at the end, I think it would start with, I think individuals would be healthier in themselves because they wouldn't have that kind of negativity and that conflict. Friction, as we maybe said on the previous portion of the interview. there's a healthy friction and then there's a destructive friction.
Right. I mean, it's almost like the Enter the Prince degree where you meet that resistance at the door. I mean, you have to get beyond that friction and you evolve as a person once you're past that.
There's nothing wrong with challenges, but attacks are different.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Now, just to end the conversation with the esoteric conference we have going down in San Antonio, I think if I'm not mistaken, you said something about like each speaker could maybe set up their own little table or have their books or whatever material they have available set up. Uh, do you think we should have a table set up for like this podcast or your production company?
Well, unless I write a book by then and get it published and have things to hawk, yes. No, I think there's that's kind of I think what you're asking me is what's the value in pen and compass and what we kind of created. So for us, this is a really, I just want it to be a real, this is almost like maybe a bohemian or hippie type of thought or whatever, but I just want it to be all about peace and love. And I want to show Freemasonry that there's a lot of talented, interesting, intelligent, brilliant people out there. And I really want there to be maybe a change of hearts and minds. The transformation that we've talked about with me is that people pause and they stop and they go, you know what? It's okay for someone to be different than me. It's okay for me to be tolerant of the way that they do Freemasonry is different than me. Jeff loves the York Rite. He loves being in invitational bodies. And that's just like that's like him. Don't tell me that I need to put another different thing on my head and go to this meeting and wear a tie and a tuxedo. I mean, I do that. I have tons of times that I do that. But don't tell me that's the only options that I have. And I think that's where we've run people off. That's where we have retention issues. And I think if just as a whole, if people said, I'm just going to let people do Freemasonry and celebrate that they're happy and joyful and not be threatened.
That's true. But I think to expand upon that, we need to have an engagement maybe or just have an openness with the different paths within the lodge. Um, I know there are certain lodges that seem to focus on certain areas, like you got
But
TO.
that's the way everything works, right? I
Right.
mean, that's actually like biblical though. I mean, and it's like, I mean, I grew up in sports teams, and not saying that's the only way to do it, but you know, we're building a team every time we have a lodge. And if you have 100 people in the lodge and you have 98 clerks and accountants and you have zero marketing people, you have zero people that have any theatrical background. Well, guess how many more people that you're going to add that are kind of look like they're accountants and clerks.
That's true.
And so there's always and that's the beauty of it. And it's kind of fun because America's a free country. We have freedom in our choices, it's the way I'll say it. And we have the right to choose. So allow people the freedom to choose and the tolerance and
Yeah.
celebrate their individuality.
I guess that's kind of what I was going to go into is like a lot of Masons in Indiana get funneled to different lodges just almost by random, or I guess it's primarily based on their location. If they apply like on the Grand Lodge website, we get a lot of those candidates, and that doesn't mean like that lodge is really good match for that individual, and maybe that individual might be not a good.
Well, I think you've struck on something in kind of that maybe almost like a pre-mentorship.
Mhm.
It depends on how that person approaches Freemasonry. But, you know, a lot of times I'm sitting there and I'm going to kind of profile people in a positive way
Right.
and get to know them and then say, okay, where do you live? Where do you work? Tell me about your family life. And that's what we should be doing in the investigative process also, right? Before we sign off and they get elected. Um, to do them justice and not worry about how many piercings they have, but listen to them. Don't look at them and judge them. Listen to them and connect with them. There's a massive, massive difference.
Very good.
And we're talking like Mount Everest, the base of Mount Everest to the tip of it, difference. And with that, you're making this. By the way, you're making this very heavy portion of this. I want to talk about free love and peace and happiness and joy, but it matters. And so this is where whenever I have to come back into kind of reality in Freemasonry, is not everybody's going to see things the way you and I see them. But that's where the beauty of I'll kind of spin this back around. So the beauty of having that safe place, that place where you can kind of you know your battery gets recharged. We're constantly recharging our phone, we're constantly recharging all these things and have all these plugins, but you need that place in Freemasonry, and it might be your Blue Lodge from the outside world that might transform. Because for me, originally that's what I had, but whenever I got the privileges of being maybe in the York Rite, and then went into invitational bodies, and things were very structured and purposeful, it really took off for me. And it really made me enjoy the fraternity on its most basic human level. And I mean, you've known me for just a few months, several months, but you know how much it's integrated in my life, how much Freemasonry is in my life every day.
Oh
It's
yeah.
hard for me to turn it off.
That's kind
Uh,
of how it is for me. I mean, there's so many aspects to Freemasonry, and I mean it can encompass a lot of your time.
well, it's not,
Well,
but it inspires me so much. And then what I do in my sales job is there's a lot of times I get connected to things or I learn things as a byproduct of being around a set of Masons that happen to maybe be in the same industry.
right.
Because I travel around in different areas, and they ask me, so, oh, why are you here? Why are you not like you're visiting? And I'm like, well, I'm here to do this. And they're like, oh, tell me more about that. I'm a salesman. You shouldn't really do that if you don't really want to listen to me. And I try to explain it the best I can. And some people are like, hey, here's my business card. Call me tomorrow when I'm at my work or whatever, and I'll connect you to our purchasing agent. I'll connect you to our engineering staff. I'll connect you to, it sounds like these are the people within my organization that I can help you network with and be like, hey, I met this guy. He's a great guy. Call him. Or give me my business card. Give me your business card, and I'll have them follow up with you. Sometimes it works out or not, but a lot of times, that's how my papa did it. If you didn't hear that, he had his group of friends, and it's been amazing for me to live in a town of 350,000 people, and even be in the state of Texas with what 20 plus 20 however many millions of people we have. And when my wife or daughter or whatever drive across the state and travel, I mean, I want them to be safe, but in a way, there's something in the back of my mind. It's like, if something happens, there's AAA, but there's also probably within 30 minutes, if I got the right phone call and the right person, on, connected to the right person, somebody that we could trust could go and help that person in my family through that difficult situation in that short amount of time. And
Oh,
so, I think there's things that I've seen in my life. I won't, I won't expand on them here, but there's just so many acts of kindness. I mean, right now we're taping this, and it's over the weekend, and I'm actually staying in a friend's house. It's a Freemason, and it's a wonderful thing. And it's been so nice just to come and reconnect with him and his wife and get to share time together.
right. Yeah, we have a vast network of brothers and companions that help us navigate our lives together, as well as just even traveling around the country together. I mean,
Travel around the world.
yeah, around the world for sure.
I mean, I've been on vacation in the Bahamas, and let me just put it this way: I didn't drive to get from the airport to my resort and back.
Right.
Not that that amount of money was something that broke our budget. It was more about, wow, this is one of my privileges as being a Freemason, and just kind of telling people what I'm doing in my life, and then, oh well, I'd love to help you on that, and let me go out of my way to connect you to the right person, and I'm always there, and that's one of the most fun things for me is whenever um, I get a request or someone comes to me and says, "Hey, can you help me do this?" And I'm very open about. I travel everywhere, and I've been treated like the king of Texas. I've stopped counting because I'm from East Texas and I can only get up to 20 because I take off my shoes to get that high, fingers and toes. But it's amazing what people do. And I think there's a sign. I think it's in next to a lodge building as you're pulling in and out. There's kind of a little portal area or whatever where you're supposed to drop people off in bad weather. And there's a little sign right there from the 60s. This building was built in the 60s. And it says, Brother Mason, no matter what lodge you're from, tonight you're at home.
Oh yeah. Our Circumpunk Lodge in Indiana meets in at the Carmel Temple in Carmel, Indiana, and they got that right above the Tyler's door.
I mean, and it really, I mean, as I'm even talking about that, it almost cracks me up. I mean, it almost like makes me weep, with joy and this like warm feeling of like, wow, I have that in this horrible, terrible, hard world. And I have a set of people that I can just say identify myself in a certain way, never met them before, and they'll stop their lives to assist me with the knowledge that I do the same things if I can. So yeah, I mean there's so many, there's story after story about that. So did I answer your question?
Yeah. No, no, answered it perfectly. Um, but on that note, brother Jeff, companion Jeff, do you have any final words to give our viewers out there?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this podcast. Kind of going back to that. We kind of discussed it a little bit, but the the opportunity for me and the motivation for this was initially our friend Patrick Carr, our companion from Kansas, that recently wrote a book, Working Tools. And as he was launching that, I was trying to help him promote that and get some books sold. But the reason I was doing that was not only just to help him out, it was to help out the people that are going to get the book. It's Working Tools. So how can you make your lodge and your Masonic experience better? How can you enhance things?
Right.
How can you help retain members? How can you help encourage members? Amazing. I mean, again, all these things we talked about on this interview, he's trying to help give you a framework to implement that to change people's lives, not to change just the members' lives. When you change their lives, guess what you change? There's
You're changing the world as a whole by doing that.
well, I mean, it's biblical, right? You start with the family, then you go to the community, and then, like you said, the country, and then your own nation, and then the world. And so, you know, for me, getting a chance to kind of just hang out online and talk to my friends and people that I think are interesting and that I value and respect them and what they're doing, whether they're that serious academic scholar, that podcaster, they're doing presentations. Maybe they're not actually doing individual presentations, but there's some people that we're going to talk to that they're just scheduling educational series as their master of their lodge or high priest of their chapter, or they're just wanting to enhance and give in their year and what they can control. They just want to kind of give their membership something maybe a little bit different wrinkle than just degree work, paying the bills, and eating chicken pot pie.
Right.
And those things are essential too. You got to have the social. I mean, it's always like an equilateral triangle, and if one of the sides is off, you got to have the social. You got to have the ritualistic. You got well, maybe it's a square or or cube or whatever, but you got to have the financial. Everything's got to be balanced. There's just got to be balance.
Well, I think podcasts like this help bring that balance to light. Maybe a listener or a viewer might have certain things in his lodge or even in his life that's missing, and we're discussing that aspect of that, and he can bring that to light and maybe make a change.
Yeah, we're and we just want to. I mean, as much as this is just a forum for us to have the conversations that I kind of have offline, to bring those into kind of a public forum and keep it within due bounds
Right.
and within the disclaimer. There's a lot of things that I cut out and didn't go into great detail on that might have, let's just say, approached the threshold of going over the line. But I think there's so many people that are giving so much back at local levels, regional levels, district levels, whatever you want to say, and they're not really kind of getting past the edge of the shire. Kind of use they're not breaking over into the other part of Middle Earth, to use a Lord of the Rings type analogy. And they've never gotten past, it's like there's some point where Frodo and Samwise look at each other and they stop in that cornfield or whatever, and they go, "This is the farthest I've ever been away from home." And that's okay. But there's people and I can bring them through the magical technology of Zoom that we use to record these things, and use YouTube and other electronic means, and we can share digital means and share that with the world. And it's such a great time to be alive in that sense. And we want to really just promote all those people that are doing presentations and out there, and they're just passionate about it. And they love what they're doing. And we just want to celebrate them. We want to encourage them. We want to get them known. And so it's going to be really fun and interesting. There's going to be people are their household names. They're maybe in a sense Masonic celebrities. And there's going to be people that's like, this guy's fascinating. I had never met this guy if Jeff had booked him and had interviewed them, or Rodney or whatever. And it's just, there's even, we had TJ on, and one of his big buddies that he just, his running buddy, they're a pair for sure. Matthew Parker from Nebraska. And they're about as opposite. If you looked at them on paper, they're about as opposite as, peanut butter and Oreo cookies.
But I'll tell you what, those two together are the dynamic duo. They're amazing in person, online, separate, whatever. Because you can't be around Matthew Parker without hearing him talking about TJ. You can't be around TJ without hearing him talking about Matthew.
It's funny. I think you might be having a premonition because TJ is on the next episode.
Well, I know that.
I
And
know.
then whenever we have Matthew come on for his episode, there'll be three co-hosts. It'll be me, you, and TJ because I really want the energy that the two of them will bring together. And this is all about energy. It's all about kind of vibration. It's all about this like kind of manifesting this positive, symbolic, interpretive energy into Freemasonry that we've not really experienced maybe in a digital sense. I don't know. We're going to try our best.
Yeah, it's been fun so far. Um, I'm gonna say it's a pleasure actually being able to get to know you at a more intimate level during this episode.
I can't believe you stuck around this long after getting to know me this well.
It's been fun. I mean, I feel like uh, I could tell you're part of the tribe that I already know. Like you mentioned right off the bat that you knew some of the guys I hang around with, and it makes perfect sense once I get to know you, man, because you
Yeah,
get right in.
yeah. So no, this it's been a privilege to be invited to come speak places, uh, to be kind of sought out, to be referred. I'm having a lot of fun, and if you're not having fun, man, take a step back and think about what you're doing, and go find what's fulfilling and fun for you, and what makes life joyful, for sure. And I think that maybe is the 50 something year old self of me than the 20, 30, or 40-year-old self. And I think that's just some age, wisdom, and maturation. And also, I think as you get older, because I think you and I are about we're almost a decade in age difference, and you just kind of get to a certain point, and you just don't care as much, and you're just going to go, you know what, I've got this much time left, and I'm going to focus on what makes me happy, and try to find the people that I can celebrate our happiness and joy together.
Exactly. Getting rid of that draws that you don't need in life and focus on what's important to you, which
So
is
one of my little made up little sayings I have is somebody will come to me. It's not my strength. It's maybe something that I'll have to work at, or it's a challenge for me to maybe, especially maybe I'm good at it, but it's just the wrong timing. And I go like, I just don't have the bandwidth for that.
mm,
That's what I say nowadays. Because what happens on our devices whenever you don't have enough bandwidth,
yeah,
whether it's cellular, whether it's on whatever it is, when you don't have enough bandwidth, everything just crashes. And
exactly.
so if you got too many things open on your phone, or too many tabs open, or whatever on your browser, what happens? Just crashes.
And then when it comes back, you get a new background.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation. So I appreciate um, you just believing in my vision that we started with on June the 8th. It's been a lot of fun. I think it's been the way we've tried to put this all together. You've done a immaculate. I mean, I don't know if I know a word to say how awesome you're framing all this and our production value. And we don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we don't pay people to do this. We're doing this in kind of a volunteer sense. And it's we've gotten an episode out or two, and the feedback has been really positive from people that will tell me the truth. And so, and I can read them and go, yeah, you're not really telling me the truth, but tell me the truth. But it's been really positive, and people inside of Freemasonry, friends and family, outside of Freemasonry, talking about that. And I just attribute it back to you every time. But they say something positive about the production value, the graphics, the way it's all mixed and edited together. You've done a just I don't like I said, immaculate, amazing, wonderful, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Well, thank
Uh,
you. Thank you so much for your kind words, man, because it's been fun putting this together.
well, and I think it's a great proverb almost to I'm good at this, you're good at that. Let's bring it together and be great.
Yeah. And that we're on the path to
We're
greatness.
trying. We're trying.
And we're
So
gonna have fun along the way, either way.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's what other question do you have for me?
Oh, I was gonna say that pretty much I think wraps up this third episode of Pen and Compass. Until next time, keep seeking more light.